Hello everyone, Rosh Hashana is coming up on Sunday night actually, so we just want to give a tour to kind of have some ideas to go into the Chag with, have a sense of what's going on. Last year we spoke a little more generally about Rosh Hashana, but this year I want to focus on the mitzvah of shofar. We'll share some ideas. These are all based on our Bernstein's ideas in the sefer Teshuva, came out 2 years ago. But before we get there, I really want to focus on the mood of Rosh Hashana because that's an important idea to get a hold of. Because Bernstein points out that the mood of Rosh Hashana might be hard to kind of grapple with because on the one hand, it's Yom Hadin, it's Judgment Day, and therefore needs to be taken seriously. But on the other hand, it's a Yom Tov, so you're supposed to rejoice. And you can be kind of prodded that way when you're in shul. It's Yom Hadin, it's serious, then if you seem to be taking things too seriously, look, it's a Yom Tov, relax, it's a festive day, so how are we supposed to deal with that? And Rav Bernstein brings this out, and ends up quoting a Gemara, because we don't say Hallel on Rosh Hashanah or Yom Kippur. Now, those are both Yamim Tovim, and we say Hallel on Pesach, we say it on Shavuot, we say it on Sukkot, we say it on Rosh Chodesh, we say Hallel on Chanukah, so why don't we say it on Rosh Hashanah? So the Gemara in Rosh Hashana comes to explain, and it says as follows. So Amru Malachei Hashar Lifnei HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And actually I'm just going to translate. So the angels asked before the Holy One, blessed is He, Master of the world, why are the Jewish people not singing Hallel before you on Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur? So he, Hashem, responded, can it be that the king is sitting on the throne of judgment, and the books of the living and the dead are open before him, and the Jewish people are singing? So we see from here, look, today is a very serious day, maybe singing isn't so appropriate, because you're supposed to be taking things seriously. So we see that that's what the Gemara is telling us. However, we have a midrash that seems to, kind of take a different angle to it. And the way that this midrash comes about is that it's talking about how we should conduct ourselves on Rosh Hashanah. So again, I'm just going to translate directly. So it is the way of the world that if one has a judgment pending, he wears black clothing, leaves his beard unkempt, and doesn't trim his nails, for he doesn't know how his judgment will turn out. However, the Jewish people are not like that. They wear white clothing, trim their beards and nails, and eat, drink, and rejoice on Rosh Hashanah, for they know the Holy One, blessed is He, will perform a miracle for them and give their judgment a favorable outcome. Now, we seem to have two seemingly incongruous ideas before us. On the one hand, very serious, no singing. And yet on the other hand, we have this kind of a feeling of rejoicing because we're so confident about receiving a positive income, a favorable income. Now, how do those two things work? Now, Bernstein says that it's possible that the reason why it's hard for us to deal with this seeming incongruity is because it's hard for us to relate to being serious and being happy at the same time. Because normally when people think of being serious, they think of being stern and not being happy, and you shouldn't be joking, and we're being serious. And then when you're being happy, you're kind of being silly and joking and being foolish, and you're kind of messing around and not taking things seriously. And that is actually that is not a Torah perspective at all, because at the end of the day, Rosh Hashanah is teaching us we're supposed to take this day very seriously. And yet, the more seriously we take it, the more capable we are of rejoicing. Because now, because of the fact that we're taking Rosh Hashanah so seriously, and we understand what's hanging in the balance, that is the basis for us rejoicing, because we believe that we will have a favorable outcome. Those two things go together. In the words of Rav Bernstein, the basis of our joyous mood is our confidence that Hashem will judge us favorably. That's what's empowering each idea. We take it seriously and we rejoice, and those two ideas kind of energize each other. And it's not the incorrect idea here is to think that we have this positive mood because we're being complacent and we're completely oblivious to the nature of the day. That's not what's happening here. We're perfectly in tune with what's happening through this day. We're aware of how serious it is, and that's what funnels our belief that we'll receive a favorable income. So that sets the mood for Rosh Hashanah. Now, turning towards the shofar, we've already spoken about this idea in the Elul Drash we gave a few weeks ago. I highly recommend listening to that, because back then we understood, so why at the beginning of Elul do we start blowing the shofar right at the beginning of the month, of the month of Elul, a month before Rosh Hashanah shows up? What's the deal? And we quoted a Rambam there, and the Rambam says, again, I'm just going to translate directly. So, even though the blowing of the shofar on Rosh Hashanah is a divine edict, which means to say we don't understand it, Nonetheless, there is an illusion contained within it, as if to say, wake up from your sleep and from your slumber, examine your ways, do Teshuva, and remember your Creator. And we said a few weeks ago that what is this sleep that Rambam is talking about? So it's not physical sleep. That is to say, it's not sleep that we have at night. It's spiritual sleep. Spiritual sleep is usually characterized by incessant physical activity. Because we're so busy in the material world, we kind of put any spiritual idealism and a dedication towards character perfection to the side because we're too busy doing other things. And therefore, Rambam says, wake up, and you should be. And the shofar is a call to the higher idealistic part of man. And in that way, we're supposed to wake up. And Rav Shimshon Raphael Hirsch actually gives over an idea that really just vibes right into this concept. That is to say, how do we produce a sound from the shofar? You're supposed to blow into the shofar, right? That's how you make the sound of the shofar. Well, okay, but there's a wrong way to do it and a correct way to do it. The wrong way to do it is just by kind of exhaling into this. That is to say, people breathe naturally. We inhale and then we exhale. It's natural, it's instinctive. We do it even when we don't want to. You can't actually even hold your breath. You can do it up to a point, but then you'll naturally exhale because you need to breathe. If you exhale in that way into the shofar, no sound will be produced. Nothing will happen. In order for you to produce a sound, you need to channel your energy, you need to focus it, and by doing that, by concentrating that breath into the shofar, that's how you produce a sound. And the lesson here is that a lot of people kind of just walk through life, and you have to be careful not to do that. That's to say, we just kind of go about life and work in the way that we breathe. It's just a passive action, right? Or at best, it's maybe mildly reactive. You just kind of do things because that's what you do. You don't really think about it. However, if you want to produce a sound, what do you need to do? You need to channel that energy. You need to focus. You need to hone your ambition. And once you do that, you can add your sound to God's world. And that is the message of the shofar. That you're supposed to take that energy and make something of it. And not just kind of react in an instinctive way. You're supposed to be fully aware of what it is you're doing and to concentrate it properly. That is the message of shofar. But moreover, Rav Bernstein keeps going. And this again is in chapter 20, where he says that actually there are two places in the Torah that's mentioned that you blow the shofar, or that you have a positive mitzvah to blow the shofar. There's obviously Rosh Hashana, which we're talking about right now, but there's also the Yovel, the Jubilee year, that, at year 50, certain things happen. And based on the certain words in the Psukim, we actually learn out some halachas from the way we blow the shofar on Rosh Hashana to Yovel, and vice versa. There are some ways that we blow the shofar referenced by Yovel, and we learn that is actually true by Rosh Hashana as well. Now, that seems, fine. But what's going on here? Because at the end of the day, we blow the shofar on Rosh Hashana for different reasons than we blow it on the Yovel. For Rosh Hashana, we blow it because you're supposed to wake up, you're supposed to do Teshuva, do better, remember your Creator. That's why we're blowing shofar, according to Rambam. That's the point. With Yovel, there's no Teshuva aspect. Where does that come from? It's about other things. What are those other things? So there are two things that happen on Yovel. One is that now, all this to say that even though we learn halachas from Yovel to Rosh Hashanah, there's also an underlying meaning and message that we're supposed to learn from Yovel. Now, what are those things? What happens at Yovel? Two things, as we just said. One, so land that's sold actually reverts back to the original owners. That's one thing that happens at Yovel. But there's something else. That anyone who's sold into servitude also gets set free. Now, what's amazing about this commandment is that the Torah doesn't just kind of command it and leave it at that. It actually gives its basis for issuing this commandment. That is to say, HaKadosh Baruch Hu doesn't just say, okay, when Yovel comes, return the land back to its owners because I said so. That's not what he says. He says as follows, and we'll quote the pasuk even in Hebrew, V'ha'aretz lo timacher litzmitut, ki li ha'aretz, ki gerim et toshavim atem imadi. And the land shall not be sold permanently. Why not? For the land is mine, for you are sojourners and dwellers with me. So in this situation, Hashem is not just saying, give the land back because I said so. Rather, he's saying, give the land back because ultimately it was never yours to begin with. And in that way, we're kind of being redirected, and we're having our mentality set proper that, look, for now you can think that the land belongs to you. It does not belong to you. And that's the message that kind of gets set with the Yovel. And we see the same thing when it comes to to releasing your servants or slaves. So the pasuk says, "Ki avadaihem asher hutzeitu otam me'eretz Mitzrayim lo yimachru imkeret eved." For they are my servants, whom I took out of Egypt. They shall not be sold permanently as slaves. So once again, the command to release servants is accompanied by an expression of the reality that both the master and the servant ultimately belong to God. So we see this kind of higher ideology that's being imposed in this Yovel. You think for over these past 49 years that you control the land, and that you control people, and that everything is about you. But that's not true. Both the master and your servants, both of you belong to God. And both of these halachas, at what point are they triggered? By the blowing of the shofar. That's what happens. And says Rav Bernstein, and I just need to quote this verbatim, it's amazing. On Rosh Hashana, we may perceive exactly the same thing. The mashal of shofar as a wake-up call is very significant. When one is asleep, he is not merely inactive. He is also cut off from the reality around him. Moreover, when people are asleep, they dream, which means that not only are they removed from the reality around them, they have replaced it with an alternative inner reality. That means to say that over the year, we might think, look, this world is about me, I have my goals to accomplish, I have work I need to do, and you have the promotion I want to accept, I want to make partner, or become the boss, or become the CEO, or get good grades, or get the job, whatever it is, it doesn't matter, but the point is the world is about me and my accomplishments and what I need to get done. And so the shofar comes and tells us that the issue here is not, okay, look, all that is true, we just need to do a little bit better and people are a bit more sensitive. That's not the issue. The issue is, wake up. That's what the shofar is coming to do. We blow the shofar so you get dispossessed of that reality and you start to realize whose world you're living in and to whom you owe your allegiance and your energies and your talents to. That is the message of shofar. Amazing, and that comes through what we learn from the Yovel and from this Gzera Shava between Rosh Hashana and the Yovel. Now, those are perhaps broader ideas. And we see, Rav Bernstein says, I know we're already 12 minutes, but we'll keep going, that we see this message through or how we're supposed to go about this, through the sounds of the shofar. That is to say, there are two sounds. There's tekiah and shivarim. Tekiah is one sound, one unbroken note. And tekiah means firmly embedded. Because the reason why we start with that sound is to teach you, look, you're firmly embedded within God's world. That is to say, remember who your ancestors are. You come from the Avot, right? And from Moshe Rabbeinu. You come from the nobility of the Jewish ancestry, right? You have a beautiful neshama inside of you. That's who you are. That's who you really are. But then right after the tekiah, you have the shavarim and the truah. They're broken sounds. Because even though it's true that you essentially have intrinsic worth, there are things that you need to break about you. There are things you need to work on. And we see that does need to be worked on. You can't avoid that. But even after that, after you work on those things, we have another tekiah. We have another long and broken note to say, even though you have things you need to work on, ultimately, you're still good. And God still sees value in you. So we see that through the message of the shofar. Now I just want to say one last brief idea, because before we blow the shofar, we have a Tehillim. Tehillim Mem Zayin, chapter 47, which is Lamnatziach Livnei Korach, right? So the minhag is within Ashkenazim to say it 7 times. Some Sfarim have that custom to say it 7 times. Some say it only 1 time. Some, I think, may not say it at all. Regardless, there's a minhag to say this kapitel Tehillim, this chapter of Tehillim. Now, the connection seems to be fairly easy. We have references to the shofar. We have references to the fact that God is king. But there's something else going on. This Tehillim was written by the sons of Korach. Who are the sons of Korach? So the Midrash says that the 3 sons of Korach were actually involved with their father in the rebellion against Moshe. And right at the critical juncture, when the earth was swallowing them up, and they realized they were in the wrong, Korach's sons did Teshuva and they were spared. And then afterwards, the Midrash tells us that they wrote a few of the chapters of Tehillim. Now that is an amazing lesson, because we're being taught right before we blow the shofar that look at the sons of Korach. They were wrong, and they made a mistake, and yet even so, when they realized they had made a mistake, they did Teshuva, and they were spared, it worked. And so we kind of see that Korach's mistake, the reason why he was punished, was not because of what he did wrong, but it's because of the fact that he didn't correct himself, that he didn't do Teshuva in that last moment. And that is the The Tehillim we say right before the moment we hear the blast of the shofar. Those are amazing messages to take with us. Shana Tova Umtuka. You should have a Chatima Ktiva Tova and a Gmar Chatima Tova. All should go well with us. And we'll see you next year and next week.